News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis. Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
Welcome to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning.
I'm Allan Gilbreth with darkoakmedia.com.
And I'm Maximilian with the ever-prevalent, relevant International Sculpture Day.
Okay, International Sculpture Day. I'm glad the world is taking notice of that. So, is it Sculpture Day or is there like a
Sculpture Day? Just
Okay.
Sculpture Day.
So So, Allan, you're probably going to get out of here and make some sort of a food sculpture. That's how you celebrate, right?
Well, I've been known to do something like that. It'll probably be kumquats this week.
Okay. Yeah,
So,
you and these, that's what I heard the other day on the food dude.
I was just about to say that too. You and your kumquats.
Okay. Well, I think that's going to be highly relevant. That's going to be a relevant theme today, Max.
I even have, if we have time, I even have a little bit of a deep cut on some of the history of sculptures or some of the oldest sculptures in history.
Okay, that sounds like a plan. So if you want to weigh in today, it's a good day to do it. We have a lot on the table, including, your home improvement comments or questions or triumphs. Whatever you want to discuss, you can get in touch with us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. I think the cameras are on, right, Max?
They are now.
I feel like mine's crooked, but anyway.
It's just that fun Dutch angle.
Okay. Yeah, it's like the old Batman.
I just thought it was his head.
Right.
Oh, well.
You can watch this on the News Talk 98.9 The Roar's Facebook page and the News Talk 98.9 The Roar's X page. And if you scoot on over to the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page, you'll see a couple of posts. One of them, it's very apropos, Max. I'm almost thinking this was intentional. For our great moments in building history, we are going to discuss a really unique, it is a sculpture. I guess it's a steel structure.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
It is a sculpture.
It's a sculpture. It is called the Angel of the North in Gateshead, England, and it's it's a statue of an angel, you could say, but it's sort of a modern thing. It does not look like what you might think, but it's really a feat of engineering, aesthetics, and just there's a lot of really cool elements that go into it. It looks very simple, actually. But as we know, that doesn't mean it was easy at all. So that's going to be a cool discussion. We have a tool tale today, Allan, involving a blowtorch. I guess it's a blowtorch.
Ooh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so you'll like that. We have our a must-have item of the week is very personal for me. This one actually has been kind of a lifesaver. Allan had a very interesting week so far. Back in the day, Allan, your weeks in review usually involved, I don't know, catastrophe and big holes blown in the roof and just drama. It seems like lately you're on a pretty nice roll where your week is just constructive and productive projects and moving along and interesting applications and things like that. So,
Well, this is what happens when you get past the devastation.
okay, good.
You eventually you got to get done with the project.
Right.
So we're happily on the, I'm going to say a really good upswing.
Yeah.
But don't worry, I have a whole new building coming up full of all kinds of new horrible, terrible things.
Okay, gotcha. So there's a lot, and we even have more. I was reminded this week of why I hate crown molding. So, and we'll discuss that. But Max, you did say this, and can I just say something before you jump into your discussion on sculptures? When you told me that it was International Sculpture Day, as a kid, Allan, I was very fortunate to go to Italy, and so I saw, even as a 9-year-old, you couldn't help but appreciate. I got to see the Pieta and then that famous statue of Moses that Michelangelo carved.
Right.
And you cannot help but being impressed when you see that, like even as a kid. And it's always stunning to me that somebody started with a big, basic, essentially a rock. Marble is a rock, right? A big chunk of
rock,
and turned it into that. That seems like that does not seem like a art form for wimps. You got to have some intestinal fortitude to be a carver of stone. To me, it just seems like very hardcore, man. So,
well, you're diving into the philosophy of many secret societies, up to and including the Masons.
Okay.
Well,
I wasn't trying to go there, Alan. I was talking about the skill, but
well,
okay.
I am. I'm going there because of the amount of time, and if you think of all the little tips and tricks that accumulated over thousands of years of us building things.
Yeah.
And let's be perfectly honest. Everything built in the last 150 years is probably not going to last another 150 years.
Oh, that's a good
But
point.
yet, the things we still admire today are all fashioned out of stone.
There you go. That's a very good way to keep
And they're
going.
all hecka old, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
A
absolutely.
deep cut with Maximilian.
Oh, he's going deep on this one, so. Okay,
Not too deep, but I just felt like pushing the buttons.
sure. All right,
Anything
man.
for Fruit Ninja. But
Okay.
anyways, some of the oldest sculptures to discuss go back accordingly about 35,000 to 45,000 years. And that I want to start with a guy by the name of the Lowenmensch,
The
which
Lowenmensch.
is German for the Lion Man.
I like
it
the
was-
lineman. Okay.
It was found in a German cave in 1939 or thereabout, and they estimated that he was about 35,000 to 41,000 years old. Jump to about 13,000 years old, we have a really interesting structure called the swimming reindeer.
Now that's unusual.
It was I think it was found in France. It was pretty interesting, and it gets a little bit more elaborate. Because it's just essentially like a shaft like this, a small little shaft, and it depicts these two reindeer kind of like hugging the pole and swimming across like a pond or whatever. It's pretty interesting.
Sounds like a pretty complex. Was it made of stone?
Let me see.
All right. Don't you do
Now,
your research beforehand, Max?
that one's bone out of a chalk mine.
Oh, okay.
It was
So-
a mammoth tusk.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
And then what's interesting too is you get these. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of these, Alan. I assume you have. But in Assyria or ancient Assyria, the Lamassu guardian sculptures that are
yes.
posted outside of the gates. It's pretty interesting. And then you get to Michelangelo's Moses, as you said, and Michelangelo's David. He had to have a lot of intestinal fortitude, I imagine, because it's like one thing that I admire about the use of stone versus other mediums like wood that's a little bit more, or bone that's a little bit more malleable, is the fact that once you mess up, you're done. You have to get another slab.
That's what I wonder about. Al. What if you make that one thing and you just knock David's nose off or something? And,
Well,
I mean,
that's when it goes
gosh,
from
it's got to be
that's when it goes from David to all right. We're gonna do a George.
to Voldemort.
Now we're gonna do a George. Yeah, we're gonna change a few things.
Yeah.
Another thing that happens is sculptures often get carved over
What do you
throughout
mean?
history. Well, in Egypt, if they didn't like the last pharaoh, the new pharaoh didn't. They went in and made a few alterations here and there.
It makes me think of this one movie where it's depicting Caligula, and he's like, "Oh yeah, just put my head on all the gods and goddess statues."
Yeah, he was a real ego guy. Yeah, so okay, that makes sense because there's political implications when you're talking about the pharaohs or any of these other leaders.
Well,
so.
and the other thing I'm going to throw in here to sculptures is you're talking about these great, big, huge, grand sculptures. I'm going to go down to stuff as small as toys, where people just sat around and etched a bug out of a rock, and obviously it was for entertainment or aesthetic purposes only. It obviously didn't have a big issue. Now, the other thing that you could also quibble about being sculptured, or at least sculpted, is the number of tools we made out of stone
Yeah.
that were just the right size or just the right height. And we're not the only tool users.
Right.
And it is of no end of humor to me that little capuchin monkeys, the cute little guys that we always, the organ grinder
The
monkey.
freaky looking ones to me, but
Yeah, the guy giving you all the grief in the museum.
picking your pockets while the
at the movies, right.
right.
They actually have hammerstones that they will find and guard jealously in the wild.
Yeah.
Because it's just the right size to knock open that nut.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah, they have to work with tools.
So-
Don't otters do the same thing?
You get into the sea otters that have the little knocking rocks to break open the scallops and stuff. So stone tools and working with stonework has really been with us, as long as we've been us.
And I was just thinking, Michelangelo didn't have safety glasses back then.
No.
What was that like? I mean, you get a chunk of marble in your eye or dust or any of that stuff.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of OSHA going on throughout history.
I can't believe breathing that stuff in was very good for you either,
Well,
marble dust.
As a side related, you got into things like Mad as a Hatter.
Mm-hmm.
Because hatters used a lot of mercury, and mercury kind of, messes with your brain.
Right.
So, yeah, we didn't have a lot of safeties through the thousands of the years.
Right. I guess the only close comparison I can have it to is my wood turnings, because it's totally subjective. Sometimes you're making something and you're cutting and you're going, it doesn't quite look right, and you just keep and you don't know why, but you're just going to keep cutting. But sometimes I overcut. I have to start over and everything. But man, I can't imagine starting over with a. You get halfway through the statue of David, and you're like, nah, I don't like that. Get me another piece of more. It just, I don't know.
The leg falls
It's hardcore.
off. Yeah, that can't be good.
No, pretty interesting. But sculptures, they have a lot to teach us. And as we said, later in Great Moments in Building History, we're going to discuss a really cool steel sculpture. So it's going to be a good day here on Tool Talk Radio. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
There's something about an underdog that really inspires the unexceptional.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
I love that quote, and I could listen to James Spader read the phone book, but I actually don't really know what that quote means. Is he saying that the unexceptional are being inspired, or I don't know, Max. What does that actually mean?
It's the underdogs are capable of inspiring unexceptional people.
Okay, well, perfect. You're listening to Tool Talk Radio then.
There you go.
There we go. That's our blueprint. But anyway, welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989, especially if you want to, of course, talk tools, talk home improvement. But if you've ever made something artistic, if you've ever used tools, if you've ever done any stone carving or anything that is related to sculpture work, we'd sure love to hear from you. Send us some pictures. Tell us what your experience was like working with modern tools, carving. I know I see a lot of these guys carving like, decorative, yard gnomes, or these chainsaw guys, or, there's all sorts of ways to carve these days. So we'd love to see if you got any cool wood carving. So, hey, Allan, before we move along with with this episode of Tool Talk Radio, let's just discuss the elephant in the room. We both sound a little congested right now. At least I feel like we do. I don't remember ever. I'm usually pretty. You get that little bit of couple days where you see like the green coating of pollen or whatever the heck it is on your cars, and it makes you sneeze a little bit. But I've never had a week. This week was probably the worst allergy week I ever had. I'm only just getting over it. I had a friend, he's got vertigo. I don't know, he's never had it in his whole life. You sound a little congested, my friend. I don't feel bad. I just feel congested. But what is going on in the air, man? Do we need a good rain? I mean,
well, that is part of the problem. We keep having good rains.
Oh, so that's what's doing it?
That's part of the problem of. Well, let's dive into. We are in the Mid-South.
Yeah, no kidding.
And I remember when I first moved here, there was George Klein of Elvis fame had on when cable first came out. Yes, I'm that old.
Wow.
A show called Sinus City.
Really?
And that is because Memphis is uniquely located in just the right spot. We're almost in the middle of the country.
We're in the sinus belt.
We're landlocked next to a really big river.
Right.
And our mold count here can exceed that of Bangladesh on any good day.
It sure feels like it. You fly over when you're coming in, and all you see are trees.
We are green. We are leafy. Right. We are well.
It's very fertile.
Let's just say, for a city, we're well hydrated.
Yeah, no kidding.
And what that does is it brings about a lot of leaf molds, which is great for the soil and all that kind of stuff. But for those of us like you and I that work out in it quite a bit were exposed to a lot of that.
Right.
And the pollen and everything else. So it's been kind of a rough week.
Okay. All right, but what's going to get rid of this, and how much longer are we going to be dealing with this? Because
just as everything processes through, we're getting rid of all of the fall and winter leaves.
Okay.
They're moving on. A couple more weeks, and we'll be back to better air.
Okay, good. Yeah, because it's noticeable this year.
Yes,
usually it's tolerable. This year's, I guess we did have a lot of rain leading up to April.
Well, but we keep getting rain every 2 or 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
And that just keeps us in the, I'm going to say, well-hydrated category. We're not getting our usual rain and slump. We kind of rain and then we're dry for a week or two. Then we rain again and we're dry for a week or two. Right now, we're going rain on Wednesday, rain on Friday, rain on Monday. So, we're just not drying out like we normally do.
Not to beat this into the ground, but you're just making me think of something. We always talk about spring cleaning because the first thing I'm thinking about is this was probably a great time to just dust your house.
Oh, yeah.
Get rid of all that stuff. And I wonder if that's at the root of where spring cleaning came from. If it has anything to do with getting rid of all the pollen and all the sneezing stuff, and I don't know.
Well, spring cleaning actually is kind of a northern hemisphere kind of thing in the fact that you were literally trapped in your house for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks.
In the winter, yeah.
And this is also back when we had actual thresholds. So spring cleaning was when you took out the thresholds and you cleaned out everything in the house, took everything out, put the threshold back in, and re-threshed your floors.
Okay, gotcha. So, all right. Well, there we go. So, folks, if you're out there and you're suffering with allergies like we are, we feel your pain.
It's kind of a
send
tough
us a
week.
message. Let us know how you're coping with it. But, all right. Well, let's shift gears. Let's find out what Allan did this week.
Oh, the humanity.
Max, soon you might have to find a new stinger because it sounds like Allan's the work has not been horrifying at all. It's actually been pretty rewarding.
But it's part of his character arc that he has the screaming ghost.
That's true. Okay. So what did you...
Well, I'll get back to truly horrible stuff for too much longer, I promise you.
Yeah, he can't stay away from it with these emergency phone calls that you're always getting. So,
all right. Well, there's an evaluation. I'll throw this one in first.
Okay.
I'll blindside you with this one.
Okay.
I get a call from a client who says, "All right, there's something weird about the third floor."
Here we go.
That's a good opening line. Was that a text or was that a...
No, this was a phone call. He's like, all right, I'm walking down the hall, but he goes, dude, there's just something weird about it. You got to figure it out. And I'm like, okay, all right. So I go get...
sorry, is this a commercial building or a home?
It's a commercial building.
Gotta
and
keep
this
it clear.
is like a 20,000 square foot long hall.
Oh, my gosh.
It's just a long
just keeps
shotgun
going.
building. Long.
Wow.
So I get up there with the giant level, right?
How giant are we talking?
And we're talking like the 6 foot level, right?
Okay.
I'm laying it down on the ground. All right. And, when you and I say something's within bubble,
Right.
we mean it's inside the little bubble. But
it's fairly level.
Is
it's
it
level enough?
Dead center inside that little bubble?
Mm-hmm.
In this case, I noticed it's just like one slight tick off. It's in the bubble. So, as a contractor, if I had laid this floor and I'd laid this down, man, we're level. So I moved down about 10 feet.
I'm already getting questions in my head, but go ahead. Okay.
So I moved down about 10 feet, and I get the exact same results. I move down 10 feet, I get the exact same result. So then we break out the laser.
Hold on, Al. All the guy said was there's something weird.
Something weird about my floor.
And your idea was to just, well, you left out the floor part.
Well, he said there's something weird about the third floor. So I'm up on the third floor. And I'm like, okay, let's start with the obvious. Let's start with the floor.
Yeah.
So I break out the laser, and you get the laser mounted at the exact height, measurement, way at the beginning of the hall.
Yes.
Now, keep in mind, I have an entire length of a building.
20,000 square feet.
20,000 feet down.
Gee whiz.
And so it's actually only about 8,000 feet in length.
That's pretty long, Al. Yeah.
But when you're one tick off
Mm-hmm.
every 10 feet over 8,000 feet,
It's like a ski slope now.
you're like an inch.
Right.
Yeah, so, I'm looking at this, and I finally have to call the guy and go, well, let me tell you what the backside of your building is doing. So, I don't know if it was built that way. It's a 40-year-old building, but, we're going to be tearing open walls to figure it out. But
Is it going downhill or something? Or
it is
sloping?
actually sloping down.
That happens.
It can happen, especially in, clay soil.
So when he said that, were things like, sliding off tables or things rolling on their own or things like.
Well, he's evaluating the building for purchase. So we're being
Oh.
very critical of everything.
Okay, gotcha.
And he kept walking up and down, and he goes, there's just something about the third floor.
You wonder if
It's
you can
just
feel that
something-
little bit of level. Like sometimes you can sense that. Like you're walking and it just feels
Well,
like
he
you're-
had walked all the way down it and then turned around and looked back up and went, I feel like I'm walking uphill.
Yeah.
And
only an inch, but that's.
when you're just that one tiny tick off, but you've got such a long span, nothing to break it up.
But there's bigger issues at stake. It sounds like a foundation situation, right? I mean,
It could be.
and yeah.
Yeah,
So
and
you
they're-
got to think about and you've told me in the past houses can slide down a hill. It doesn't mean
Oh,
they
yeah.
slide, but it means if you're out there and you look at your fireplace bricks and they're popping or something. Well, they
yeah,
may
we
be-
started talking about bricks facing.
right.
What are we talking about when we say bricks are facing? So when you're looking at a brick wall
Yeah.
and you look at the front of the brick and it looks like the finished cover has come off, that is a brick that has been faced.
And it's stressed.
AKA, it's stressed so much that the finished cover popped off. That means that brick wall is not level.
Right. Yeah. And don't just ignore that.
And that means sooner or later, the brick wall is going to crack, or even worse, it could fall.
And we've always said foundation issues, don't be so scared of them that you just don't want to address them. I mean,
Oh, no.
the
You want
sooner
to get
you
on those
to
quick.
them,
Yeah, you want to get
and
on
they're
those
not
quick.
I mean, they can be, but they're not always as shocking and horrifying as you think. But it could be a simple thing of erosion, right? It could be a simple thing of.
It could be a simple thing of settling.
Right.
You just don't know what's in the dirt under your house.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
however, when we come back, I get to tell you about a big success.
All right. Well, that was a little horrifying, Alan. So you've done your duty there. But yeah, but the rest of the week was all
Was happiness.
sunshine and daisies. You're listening to Tool Talk Radio. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
My clamps!
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
Yeah, misusing your clamps will be a painful experience. I've known that problem. And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning. Here with my buddy Alan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. It sounds like we got a text that we're going to get to in a minute, right, Max? So,
Yes.
okay, a little delay there. So, but it's a good day to do it. There's a lot on the table. Today is International Sculpture Day, which I assume means let's appreciate sculptures. We got no shortage of them in the world. There's a lot of interesting sculptures to appreciate, and why not get out there and make your own sculpture? You can make it. I mean, we got so many great tools these days. You can make it out of, a log with a chainsaw or something. I guess be safe if you do that. There's a lot of things to do, but we always celebrate the arts here on Tool Talk Radio. So, actually, Max, why don't you go ahead and somebody texted us?
It was Agent 732, about time.
Haven't heard from him in a while. So, all
So
right,
it
what's
turns
he up
out,
to?
he said, we had weird noises coming from the attic every night. Turns out it wasn't a ghost, but the support beams were solid from the roof down to the ceiling. So the noise was every bird and squirrel that ran across the roof was transferred down through the beams.
Huh. It reminds me of like a tuning fork or something, right? So he's
Yep.
got some vertical. Is that what's going on, Alan? You think he's got some vertical boards that are transferring the vibrations through the.
All right.
Or does he just not have enough insulation?
No, that tells me he lives in one of 5 subdivisions in
Okay.
the Mid-South. I know exactly what he's talking about. For a lot of construction, especially around the 80s and 90s,
Yeah.
one of the bigger things to do was to basically double rafter up in the attic. Your roof, the way it sits, there are now tie-ins of 2x4s that come straight down.
Right. Literally. There's just,
Honestly.
you walk in your attic and there's a 2x4 attached to the...
There is a 2x4 attached to the rafter
Right.
up against the roof. And what happens is that's just like the old 20s movies of somebody banging on a pipe.
Right.
And you can hear it all up and down through the building. So basically, every time a raccoon goes romping across his roof, he will hear that all the way down through.
What would you do to combat, just from a scientific point of view, like if you wanted to get rid of that? Like what if that was really bugging you and you wanted to eliminate that? Would you wrap it in foam? Or do you,
you can. This is one of those uses for that spray and insulation foam.
Okay.
You can get into any of the gaps and crevices where you can isolate and make that 2x4 sit really still.
Mm-hmm.
That would help diminish, but it will not get rid of all of the sound.
Okay. All right. Well, I think it's funny that the Agent 732's biggest concern was eliminating the ghost factor. That's the first thing that went to his mind, not, not
well, when you got
raccoons or
spooky
nothing.
noises in the attic, it's not that far of a leap.
He's got a different way of thinking about the world. So, but anyway, all right. Well, thanks, Agent 732. We haven't heard from you for a while, but yeah, see if that works. Just look at all the boards and everything that could be carrying vibrations down to the
and make sure
down
that
to the ceiling.
they're well insulated and that they really can't vibrate.
Okay,
Right.
cool. All right. Well, that sounds good. In a minute, Alan. Now we're gonna discuss the triumphs of your week in review. Before we get to that, though, we always love to talk about our good buddy Larry Brown with Brown Refrigeration because there's fewer things more important than the HVAC system in your home, and we love the business and the business culture and just the all around professionalism of Brown Refrigeration. They're always the first phone call you should make when you have any HVAC needs. Larry Brown has been in this game really his whole life. He lives and breathes this stuff. He's passionate about his work because he's good at it. This is something that he really appreciates, and he knows how important your HVAC system is. And we were talking about it earlier about clean air and all the pollen and everything we're dealing with, which is another reason to incorporate their clean air systems like the Remy Halo system that cleans every surface that it lands on. It's not a big upgrade either. It's not a very expensive upgrade to your system.
No, it's well worth it.
Yeah, it's definitely worth the money, and it's also a great time to get them out here and get your air ducts clean because it's all well and good to have a functioning HVAC system, but if it's full of dust and cat hair and pollen and everything else, you want that. And it's always a good idea, too, to just get them out there to give your system a once-over. Get them out there once a year. Just give it a checkup, a tune-up, and it'll keep it running efficiently for years. They always love to work with trained systems because that is the state-of-the-art when it comes to HVAC systems. And as we said, they are reliable, they're rock solid, and they're all about the long-term, protection of your HVAC system. So give them a call. You can call them directly at 901-362-1881 or go to their website, brownref.com. All right, Alan, so let's talk about the triumphs of your week in review. You're still on this. It's a home, right? You're basically gutted a structure and you're rebuilding everything.
Yeah, a structure is a good word for it. It was a homunculus of bad ideas.
What is homunculus? Okay, never mind.
It was think of Frankenstein as
it's
a
an
homunculus.
alchemical term.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, think of Frankenstein as a homunculus.
Well, how old is this building?
of this building is anywhere from, I don't know, the 50s to the 70s to the 80s to the 90s.
Okay, so it has been added on, Frankenstein.
Yeah,
together.
it was originally a little tiny house with a basement. Then somebody in the 70s put a living room on it. Then somebody in the 80s stuck a Winnebago to it. And then, it's just, it was just, one of those, when you finally saw the finished product and you looked at it and went, wow, that's a disaster. So all of that's been gutted. All of that's been removed. So all the terribleness is over. And we're finally down to mudding and finishing.
Right.
And let's talk for a moment about pocket doors.
Yeah, because that's a unique, you know what I'm seeing these days, Alan? I'm not seeing as many pocket doors. I'm seeing these farm doors. Where you
doors. I'm also doing a farm door in this.
Right. But pocket doors are a unique application.
Since we were building a closet where there was nothing before, the option to put in pocket doors, was discussed. And we framed it out and we installed pocket doors. And that is basically a door inside the wall.
Right. Yeah. Which creates its own issues. I mean, it solves a lot of issues, but it also creates things that you got to give it some thought.
Well, the biggest thing is the leveling.
Right.
You have got to get both sides of this thing lined up and leveled just right. And you've got to secure it well enough that it's going to stay that way for decades.
Yeah.
It can't be, it's good enough and let's go.
And they have a habit of getting jammed in their pocket.
That's because they're not leveled properly.
Right. Well, I mean, if they come off the rail and they're inside the wall, they're a little bit of a chore to get out sometimes.
Yeah, they're a pain.
Can I just give you one pocket door story?
Absolutely.
So back in the day, I think this was in the 90s, I was doing this was an expensive house. This is one of these midtown homes that they do bus tours to drive past it. This was a nice place. They installed a pocket door, and I bet you the door alone cost like $1,500. It was a nice door. Well, somebody thought, I don't know who did it, but I came back the next day. Somebody thought that the perfect place to hang that one really big picture was right next to the door, right next to the wall where the door was.
No.
They drove like I don't know what, a 16 penny nail through there, and it hit the pocket door.
Oh, yeah.
Because you got to remember, folks, if that pocket door is only, instead of being like, 4.5 or 5 inches away because of the wall, this door is like 2 inches from the sheetrock.
Yeah,
and you don't
it's right
see
behind it.
So keep that in mind.
Yeah. The biggest thing was, it took us, it felt like forever.
Right.
But it took us the extra hour of niggling and figgling and messing, and we finally got it leveled just right. And the moment that happened, it's like, lights come on, birds start singing. Now the pocket doors slide back and forth all the way across, and everything worked good. So my advice there is, if you are installing those, take a big deep breath. Do not get frustrated. Do not try to make it fit. Take your time, and you'll enjoy the outcome.
And
for
remember
decades
that it's there.
to come.
You know what I'm wondering? Because maybe I'm wrong, but I don't notice as many pocket doors in modern construction,
No.
and I wonder if it's because you remember back in the day there were so many. Even in the 80s, I saw a lot of this. You would go into a master bathroom. And there's a door here, then there's a door over there, then there's a little cubby hole for the bathroom, and then there's like 5 or 6 doors just in the master bathroom.
Yeah.
And pocket doors were a way to keep some of the doors from swinging in the way. But I feel like now, these days, with the more open floor plans we have, it kind of takes away the need for a pocket door or something. I mean,
in some instances, however, this is of giving us a full walk-in closet off of a hallway.
Well, I mean,
so now we're
sometimes
not
you need
wasting.
one. Yeah.
So now we're not wasting those big doorway spaces because we're not really looking for audible privacy.
Yeah.
This is already in the bedroom. You're already in there.
Yeah.
This is just a separator between you and your closet.
Yeah.
So you can close your closet doors.
No, and I guess the other thing is to install them. We've all seen the pocket doors where at the bottom there's a gouge because there's some little, nail or there's some little,
Right.
you just got to really think it out. There's a lot.
You do.
Yeah.
Now, the flip side of this is there's also going to be a ton of floor leveler
Oh, yeah.
because we kept part of the original floor and it's all over the place. We've probably got an inch differential from the beginning of the building to the back side of the building.
Oh, boy.
So there's going to be some subflooring laid. There's going to be some brought in. But the biggest thing right now is getting that nice, smooth, level floor
Right.
that I can put my flooring on.
Yeah.
So,
It's easier to do it now while it's,
Oh, my gosh.
while it's empty. So.
Oh, yes, so much nicer, so much easier to let that get in there and level out.
Okay, cool. All right, so pretty successful week for Allan. So I had a successful week, but it was also an irritating one, and it reminded me of why I hate crown molding. So we're going to discuss that when we come back here on Tool Talk Radio.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
Good news, everyone! I'm in terrible pain.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
Well, the best way to solve a problem is to first recognize that you have a problem. So good for you, Professor. At least he understands that.
Sounds like me every Monday morning.
Yeah,
But
you don't want to sleep through something like that. And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning. Here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. And I thought Agent 732, who texted us in a little earlier, had actually a pretty relevant and, practical question. It was all about the vibrations of every animal running across his roof being transferred from the, because there's an attic space and somehow it's making it from the attic into his ceiling. Well, we were talking about how there's boards. If you go upstairs and if you go up to the attic and you see that you maybe you have like a 2x4 support or or a beam or something. Well, that vibrations are traveling through that. So Allan suggested maybe wrap it or a little foam insulate or something to disperse the vibration.
Yeah, anything to keep the vibrations from transferring.
Or if you go up there and there's that loose board up there, just screw it in or something, because that's all of that is kind of doing that. But well, Allan, speaking of woodworking, I guess this is a little different, but it's funny how you fall into things. I'm a little different than you. I'm fortunate in the fact that I don't have to do too many projects I don't want to do. I don't get the emergency calls you get. I don't get sometimes you have jobs you probably don't want to do them, right? I mean, let's be honest.
There are a few that are less than enthusiastic. Yes.
Okay. Well, over the years, I've gotten away from. Well, I can paint pretty well, but I'm slow. I'm very detail oriented when it comes to painting and stuff. So
You are meticulous. Yes.
I don't do as much painting because it's not profitable for me. I'll just be honest. So and then another type of work that I've steered away from is more. I would call it trim carpentry in terms of, doing a lot of detail molding and stuff. I like to build, decks or room addition. I like to build things that are big and you see the results pretty quickly. And
Right.
But I was doing a favor for my customer because they had some crown molding. Basically, they had this is that house I told you it's built in 1929.
Right.
Nothing's literally nothing is level. It's plaster.
Yeah.
It's everything. So they had their daughter's room had a piece. There was like this one of these old. It's a long story. I had to remove a bunch of crown molding and install new crown molding, but it went off in this these weird angles because it had to accommodate. It had to work around where the curtains go. In other words, instead of one piece of crown molding, I had like 5 that I had to do with all those angles, with no straight lines, with everything was unlevel, nothing was 45-degree angle. And I was just reminded of why I love I love the way crown molding looks, but it's something you got to think about. For one thing, it is really time consuming to put it in.
I am very surprised to hear you say that you like crown molding because I associate crown molding with like that gaudy Baroque architecture stuff.
Well, I see your point, Max, but I don't know what it is. It's either an optical illusion, but when you put crown molding on, it makes the ceiling look taller. Now, it has to be the right kind of home, too, Max. I mean, if this was a more minimalist home or something, I'd say, yeah, you don't need crown molding. But there's places like this home, it's appropriate. This is what the
it
style
matches
of the
the
home.
era and style of the home, right?
But so if you're on there, if for one thing, if you've never done crown molding before, it is not really it's not really the best DIY project to start with, because I'm just telling you, Allan, how many mental gymnastics do you have to go through? You have to really think carefully before you start cutting.
I just remember my very first crown molding job, and it was a million years ago. It was like 1980.
Yeah.
And I was working with a contractor named Jose, and he looked at me and he goes, "Okay, have you ever done this before?" I'm like, "No." He goes, "All right, take everything you know about molding and make it upside down and backwards."
Yeah, because
And I
putting
went,
door trim on or something is not that hard. But yeah.
Well, door trim, you
That's
take the longest
straightforward.
possible
Right.
measurement, you cut a 45-degree angle, do the other longest possible measurement, you cut a 45-degree angle. You got about a 90% chance they're going to match up perfect.
Right. Yeah.
That does not work with crown molding.
No.
You have got to be, I mean, you got to measure like 6 times. You got to know that angle. You got to pencil it out. You really have got to get in there and be meticulous, because you're working in basically all 3 dimensions.
Yeah.
Because you've got a depth, you've got a curve, you've got the angle of cut, plus you've got the ceiling to match.
I got a question. It seems like a lot of the angle of cut would be 45 degrees, but have you ever encountered a house with an extremely odd angle?
Yeah, this one.
All of them.
Yeah.
All of them, yes.
But Max, what's interesting is it's not necessarily 45. Now, if you want to get real cool, like for example, I like to do the cuts just because it's easier. If you with my miter saw, if you put the blade at a 30 degree, or if you tilt it 30 degrees, I think it's 30 degrees. I got a mark on my saw. And then if you angle it like 30 degrees, somehow when you chop that together, it comes out as a 45-degree cut. Now, that's when you put the piece flat,
Right.
But then that's also assuming that everything is, hunky-dory. But what I prefer to do, folks, if you're out there and maybe you want to try to tackle this, one tip I will say is if you've got, if you're putting up crown molding, don't just start on one end and attach it to the wall. For one thing, you got to know where all the studs are. You got to get a stud finder. That's not easy when you're working in a 1929 home with plaster walls, and you can't.
That's unpleasant. Yeah.
But what I would say is, what I found to be helpful is I start in the middle of the board. If let's suppose you have a 10-foot or 20-foot wall, you just put the crown molding, attach it in the middle, and leave it loose. And the reason is because you may actually have to twist that into position. I get before I connect the 2 pieces, I get that secured, and then you kind of you're almost bending it into position, and you're forcing it to your will but the thing about it is you got to make sure crown molding is very well attached, and make sure if you've got crown molding that you keep those gaps caulked, because Allan, you said something important about bugs.
Oh,
if you're looking at your crown molding and you see a little gap there, don't just leave it. Caulk it up, right?
Well, yeah, you can. Being originally from South Texas, we used to call those scorpion traps.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can.
It's the perfect headquarters. If you're a
it's the
bug
perfect headquarters for every critter you don't want to know lives in your house with you.
Yeah.
The other thing I find with crown molding is you really have got to look at the ceiling and see how much forgiveness you can get.
Yeah.
Because you can push up and bully it just a little bit, but you really got to know how to attach that crown molding to the wall.
And you got to hit the studs and the rafters.
You got to hit it just right.
Right.
And that just reminds me, we got a caller. They just wanted to pass along a friendly message to one of our wonderful sponsors.
Okay.
They said that there's only 1 of 6 people in Memphis or so that know how to properly crown mold, and they said it's our buddy Jay Hill.
Oh, so Jay Hill's we know that. He's an expert remodeler. So,
yeah.
All right. So did they give a name, Max? Somebody called in with a testimonial?
Yes, they did. I believe it was Wayne, a good
Wayne?
friend.
All right. Well, thanks, Wayne.
Wayne, thanks for the shout out. So, but yeah, crown molding. So if somebody, if don't just hire anybody to do your crown molding. And if they give you a price that you think maybe is a little inflated, just realize there's a lot of work that goes into crown
Yeah, the
molding.
labor in this thing is going to be crazy. Now, if you want to try it yourself, I'm going to really highly advocate fake it before you make it.
Oh, yeah.
You try it out a little bit. Make you a little fake corner. Go get you some 2x4s and some sheetrock. Make you a little fake corner and try to get that crown molding in there. Do it a couple of times. And once you get it, your mind makes the leap that, oh, this angle, that angle,
Right.
upside down and goes in. Then you talk about a sense of accomplishment.
It
Oh my
does.
gosh.
It is satisfying. So, I mean, and I had one little tip too I'll hit when we come back about trim carpentry in general. And then we're going to move it along, though. But, Alan, we've got a really interesting second hour coming up, especially when we get to our great moments in building history when we discuss the Angel of the North, a really unique structure in Gateshead, England. You're listening to Tool Talk Radio. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis. Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. You can call if you think you have ghosts in your home, or if it's maybe raccoons running across your roof, or if you just want to sing the praises of some of our sponsors, like Wayne did earlier, talking about the masterful trim work that was done by Big M Roofing and Remodeling. So you can do that for any reason, or if you want to talk about sculptures, because today is International Sculpture Day. Get in touch with us. Like we said, you can send pictures too if you want, No video.
Agent 732 actually sent us a sculpture, not that he made, but if you remember during a deep cut, I talked about one of the oldest statues in the world that was found in a peat bog.
Okay. What is it?
I can't remember the name off the top of my head.
No,
but
what did he send us?
It was just a picture of a replica of it.
Okay.
But that was a while back, though.
Oh, all right. Well, you're confusing me, Max. But anyway, regardless, send it in. Get in touch with us, 901-683-0989. And you can also watch the show if you go to the News Talk 98.9 The Roar's Facebook page and the News Talk 98.9 The Roar's X page. The cameras are on. And we also invite you to go to the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page and check out the posts we've made over there. And give us a like and share the page. And it's also a good place to find links to past shows and things like that, right, Alan? So,
Oh, absolutely.
before the break, we were talking a little bit about, I'm not saying I hate crown molding. I actually like crown molding, but I think the problem for me, Alan, I'm a carpenter. I'm making my living doing woodworking and everything. And what I don't like is when you do a job where the perception is, if somebody says, hey, I want some crown molding installed in this room, and they look at it and they're like, oh, this is 4 pieces of crown molding, or this is, whatever. It looks like this should not be a very, time consuming, and when you'd say, well, it could be $500 or whatever it might be, you have to explain this is not this is tedious, and then you got to fill in the hole, you got adjustment. There's a lot of mental gymnastics that go into it, and that's assuming that the walls are level and square and everything.
And they're not.
So
that's how you really find out they're not.
But there is I don't know if I can describe this adequately over the radio, but I would definitely, if you're interested in installing crown molding or any decorative molding, I would definitely get on YouTube and watch some how-to videos.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm one of these, there's two techniques you can do. Max, you were asking earlier, you were saying you assume maybe there's a lot of 45-degree angles that butt together.
Because of like the walls and everything, you assume those are 45-degree angles always.
Well, there's a way to cheat, Max, and this is one that I'm kind of a fan of. And I don't think it's a cheat. I just think it's a different approach. So, folks, if you can imagine cutting a piece of decorative molding, you cut it at a 45-degree angle. Then you take your coping saw and you cut away that entire I guess, the edge that, and basically what you've done is you've created a thing where you, instead of butting it in at a 45-degree angle, you can just butt it right against the crown molding. You know the trick I'm talking about, Alan. I don't know what that's called. I call that, it's not a 45-degree joint. It's basically a custom joint, whatever you would call it. But I'm more of a fan of that, and I find it more forgiving, and it's easier if you have to twist a board into position. So whatever the official term for that is, maybe somebody out there knows what that's called. But that's the cheat that I go to with decorative molding like that. So,
well, I also like inserting of breakups.
Oh,
AKA,
yeah. Explain what you mean.
Every couple of feet, there's a decorative feature.
Mm-hmm.
And that means, so instead of 20 feet of crown molding, I have 2 foot decorative feature, 2 foot decorative feature, 2 foot decorative feature. That way I can make micro adjustments up, down, sideways, whatever I got to do every 2 feet, instead of having that one 20-foot long board that is now bowing or not matching the ceiling, or,
Yeah.
your eye can be, your eye is easy to lie to.
Oh, yeah.
Your
This thing is
eye-
not going to be straight.
Yeah, your eye wants to follow that nice straight line. So if you give it something to follow, it will.
Right. Okay.
Right.
I was just going to say, though, if you're out there and you hire a trim carpenter, if they're good, be understanding of them. This is not quick work.
Yeah, it's going to take a minute to get this done.
At least for me. Okay, so Alan, let's see. Why don't we get to our must-have item of the week, which I have to remove.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm going to do that. Max, I don't know if you got any production. There we go. So it looks weird, but I'm holding it up, Alan, and tell people what I'm holding up.
You were holding up a compression wrap.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh, we live for these things.
I can't. Folks, if you know it, I'm sure you've seen this. I know a lot of tennis players use this.
Oh, yes.
And they make it for several parts of your body: your ankles, your elbows, your
Fingers, thumbs,
your back.
elbows,
Ooh,
shoulders. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
If you're doing any, like these days, anytime I'm doing something like, lifting plywood up onto a roof, I always use that back, But I've never really had any issues with my elbows. But at our age, Alan, let's face it, we have to start thinking about it. But this compression wrap is great because this one's adjustable. I think it cost me $15. And it really is noticeable when I feel like there's a lot of preventative stuff going on. Like, I'm going to start doing this every time I'm doing heavy lifting. But what is it doing, actually? I don't really know why. I don't know why it works. It just works.
Compression works. It is a simple basis of support.
Okay.
It is basically the idea of duct tape. You just really want to honestly know, it's basically the idea is that you've got something giving you that little extra support.
Is it keeping your bones in place and what's it? Yeah.
What it's doing, it is not allowing you to shift quickly the wrong way.
I gotcha.
So you're not going to slip the joint or cross a tendon or something like that.
Right.
So basically you have compression, which is basically holding things in place where you put it.
Right. Yeah.
And that is the whole basic idea.
But I love it. It's inexpensive, and I would just say the only thing probably is just don't have it too tight. But then
you don't want to cut off circulation.
Yeah, if you feel weird, the first one I bought was actually too tight. It wasn't adjustable though. Like, you slipped it on, and it was leaving dents in my. I'm like, okay, so I got this one, and it definitely improved. But I feel like it's not a bad idea, folks, just to have something to just keep things in their place. So.
Well, all safety equipment is there for a reason. You and I are both huge proponents of eye protection.
Right.
And not only that, but ear protection.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to be standing there behind something that makes a lot of noise, like a tile saw.
Right.
That wears on your ears after a while.
Yeah.
A little ear protection. In this case, we're talking about a little joint protection.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with protecting your ankles, your knees, your elbows. Keep yourself safe.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's our must-have item of the week. It's a little different, but it's not, it's fitting, I think, for
Very.
tools. So, Allan, shortly we are going to get to our great moments in building history, which is the Angel of the North. It's a really interesting structure. It's I would Google it, folks, if you want, or better yet, just go to the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page and see the picture that we posted up there. But today is also International Sculpture Day, and I myself, and I know you're a big supporter of the arts as well. I am an unapologetic big supporter of the arts because I think the arts are hugely important in terms of making us well-rounded human beings and just making the world better. And sometimes, art for art's sake, Allan, it's like sometimes we look at something and we go, well, like, what is the point of the St. Louis Arch? It doesn't. Nobody lives in there. It's really a piece of art, in my opinion. And it starts a conversation of, well, what if we didn't have that in our world? I think it's important. I think art actually is good for humanity. It unites people, or it can say things, or it can get conversations started, or it can elevate our thinking. I don't know. What do you think? I feel like art is a big deal, actually.
I think art comes with two words.
Okay.
What if?
What do you mean?
What if? What if we could do that? What if we didn't do that?
Right.
What's here, what's lacking of it, and a lot of people kind of go, well, art maybe. Picture how horrible our lives would be without graphic art.
Right. Yeah.
Think of all of the advertising and the slogans and the logos and everything that are so important in our lives. These are all art.
What if buildings didn't have any artistic flair? They were just square and
we were all
boxy.
just brutalism.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, hey.
We would all just look like big, giant salt licks.
Yeah.
Of art for the sake of art is good for us. And art occasionally challenges us and gives us innovations that we get to take home as lessons to make the rest of our lives easier.
Yeah, it starts conversations.
It does. Well, I mean, where would we be without the Eiffel Tower?
Right.
We wouldn't have a Statue of Liberty.
There's a lot.
It's weird how things wind up related.
Yeah. So we're gonna kind of unpack that, and I'm really looking forward to this. Max is the one that discovered this, so we'll probably let him kick it off. But you're listening to Tool Talk Radio. When we come back, we are going to dive into our great moments in building history.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
I'm in danger.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
At least Ralph Wiggum's always got the right attitude, though. I'll give him that. So nothing phases that kid. And we'll come back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. And it's a good day to do it. There's a lot on the table, including what we're about to discuss right now. Oh, I pointed at Max too quick.
I usually expect a little bit more of a lead up before we get to it. And now,
there we go.
Great moments in building history.
I've been keeping track of this, Allan. Either I do a redundant intro where I say, let's get to great moments in building history, then Max plays that, or there's some delay. I think it's been months since we've had a clean intro of great moments in building history. And now I'm making it worse by calling attention to it.
What you're trying to say is we're on a streak.
Yeah, we don't want to interrupt the streak.
Yeah, we're on a streak.
Next week, for sure, we're going to have a perfect intro to that, Max. But
so we're kind of like the Cubs record.
Hey, the Cubs
thank you. That makes it all so much better.
They're going to be in first place by the weekend, so they're playing great this year.
Yeah, they're just going to crush your soul. It's
okay.
Right.
Hey, if you want to talk baseball, Allan, we could do that. I'm trying to stay on task here. But Max, you discovered this, and I believe this should be something you should introduce. So,
well, let's go to a little town in northern England by the name of Gateshead. Gateshead back in the 90s was a town in transition. A town in transition from an industrial era, such as the Industrial Revolution and coal mining, to the age of information, coming at close to the new millennium. And the council at Gateshead wanted to make a proper memorial that honored the legacy of the town. They wanted to make, as they called it, a millennial image that would be a marker and guardian for our town.
Okay, so this was coming up at the end of the 20th century.
Because
Very
it wanted
good.
to be a symbol of hope for the new future, but at the same time still recognizing and paying homage to its industrial past.
Okay, all right, so that explains a lot. That explains a lot about the aesthetic of this. I was trying to get a handle on what they were trying to represent here, so, okay.
And what's pretty fascinating, too, is the fact that the site itself was built on the foundations of an old colliery, or in other words, a coal mine. And the material for the foundation itself was also built with, it was like the tile, it was like used from like the tile work or the ceramic work for like part of the bathing areas for the coal miners. And so it's literally built on the foundations and literally built below where the miners used to work.
Right.
Pretty
Okay.
interesting.
So if you're trying to imagine this, folks, it is a modern. It's definitely a modern art piece. I mean, there's no. Don't imagine the Statue of Liberty here with a face and with robes and it's very. There's a lot of symbolism in it, but it does not look like. Actually, it doesn't look like an angel to me, really at all, Alan. But it's shaped in a very unique way. And now that you've explained it, Max, it makes a lot of sense why they did it. So.
Well, the lovely people of Gateshead actually had the idea that they wanted an art structure for the sake of art. They actually approved this and then went looking for an artist.
Right.
So an artist did not come to them and say, "Hey, I want to build this big old thing here. What do you think?"
Yeah.
The town went, "No, we need something." Because
And they budgeted about 800,000 pounds, which what would that be in today's money? So we're talking about 1990.
yeah,
I don't know what
this-
a pound is. Was that $2 back then?
Yeah,
Or-
they came up with some cash.
Okay.
I mean, they came up with some money.
They wanted it to look good.
And so they went to a famous large artist, Anthony Gormley, and he basically turned them down. Said,
Really?
"Nah, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I don't do roadside art."
Well, we should explain because where it sits on a grassy little hill, but
Right.
it's situated where 90,000 motorists are going to see it every day. There's
Right.
two intersecting roads that are pretty. It's kind of like our version of maybe, I don't know, Highway 40 and something. It's pretty good traffic.
The city of Gateshead was, I mean, they had the right idea. They knew this was going to be a tourist attraction if they did it right.
Yeah.
So, and like all good art pieces, it's had its detractors. There was some drama and trauma about getting it built.
Nobody's ever you're not gonna get everybody to agree on art. It's very subjective.
So now Mr. Gormley finally does agree to do this, and the main contractor on this is Hartpool Steel Fabrications. And one of the interesting choices that they made in this thing was that they built it out of weathering steel.
Okay. I found that interesting too because tell us what that means.
Well, what that means is this steel actually gets stronger as it rusts.
Yeah.
It's like
that's
Roman concrete.
Exactly.
and it looks rusty. I mean, that's part of the look of it. This thing looks like it's covered in rust.
And what's
but-
even more interesting, too, is the fact when you look at the steel structure, the exoskeleton is actually, there's actually an exoskeleton rather than an endoskeleton like the Statue of Liberty, where there's a frame supporting it from the inside. Everything is all exposed on the outside.
Right. Yeah.
Now, I'll give you a Memphis tie-in.
Which is
to
very
this.
modern looking. Like we said, this is a modern art
Right.
piece. So yeah.
Memphis also has weathering steel sculptures.
Well, we've seen them. We just maybe didn't know that's what they were.
We have them down on our downtown area, and they were all designed with weathering steel so that as the rust over time built up, that crust gets harder and harder and harder, and thus less prone to damage, that type of thing.
Kind of creates a skin over
It does.
the top of it.
It does,
like
exactly.
a patina or something.
So there's your tie-in to Memphis, and I'm going to tie it into this is the kind of planning you need for a project.
Oh, this thing they said went off without a hitch, actually. And can I just say, we haven't even described it. If you can imagine, I almost equate the scale of it to the statue from the Oscars,
Right.
the Oscar statue. But then imagine wings that come out And what is the span of these? These things almost look like airplane wings.
177 feet.
They're longer than a Boeing 757 aircraft.
So it's as tall as 4 buses, 4 double-decker buses, which isn't that tall when you consider how far the wingspan is. This thing does not look like it should stand up. And it tapers down to a base which is only, I think, 10 feet in diameter around, which is only,
I wanted to
it's
give
small.
I wanted to give some interesting stats on the wings itself too.
Yeah.
And also just the general structure of it, the way it's designed. The wings themselves were also built not straight, but at a slight 3.5 degree bend forward because they wanted to give it the sense of embrace.
Yeah.
And then not only that, but because the exoskeleton, it actually makes it much more wind resistant because you think with these large wings disproportionate to the small body that it'd be much more vulnerable to winds, but they built it in such a way that it could withstand a Gateshead winds of about 100 miles per hour. And the exoskeleton structure does that perfectly because it guides the wind down below rather than through it.
And I want to say one more thing too about this because Allan mentioned the great planning that went into this. There was also a unique, I guess you could say, spirit of the enterprise because the steel company that was hired to do this, the type of manufacturing they did, it was typical that the workers never saw the results of what they did. Like they'd spend all day fabricating and welding and making these components that would get shipped off somewhere, and they might wind up in the guts of some ship or something. But this was the first project they ever saw from start to finish that they created with their own hands, and it created a real sense of pride and a real sense of kind of community, you could say. It was pretty cool. So,
well, another thing we get to look at here, and I'm going to tie this directly to anybody planning a project in their backyard.
Oh, yeah.
It's not for today.
Oh, good point.
Let's point this out. You've decided you want a barbecue grill, you want a fish pond, you want a raised planter, whatever it is you're doing. It's not for today. Think about it in 5-year terms. Can you mow behind it? Can you service it? What kind of upkeep does it need? Where do you... All right, so, and I'm saying this because they did a beautiful job of selecting high visibility, high traffic, quality of product.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that was
very well made.
Very well done, very well made. It had its detractors, but of course now it is much like the Eiffel Tower. We whined about it, now we got it, now we love it.
And can't live without it, yeah.
Now we can't imagine not seeing it when we drive by.
Right.
Although a company did get in trouble for, without permission, broadcasting their logo on it.
Wait, really? I didn't hear about
Morrison's
that.
Cafeteria actually got in trouble for broadcasting and highlighting the wings with their logo.
Oh, very interesting. So
I thought that was terribly funny.
Pretty cool. It's really interesting. And there was, the thing is, so it was assembled in 3 pieces. You had the base, like I said, which really does look a lot like Oscar, the Oscar statue to me, at least, with an exoskeleton. It's kind of wrapped around the whole thing. And then the 2 wings. And I was thinking about it, Alan. I was watching a video when they were attaching the wings. I'm like, that's no easy task. They had to hope that everything fit together, and you can't just put one wing on and then go to the other side.
Nope.
You have to support that. There's a lot of it was and you should have seen the crowds gathered around while they were doing the assembly and everything. But it sounds like it's so we're talking what, mid-90s this was constructed. It was about a 7-year project.
1998.
98.
That's
I think
when
it
it
was
opens.
conceived in 1990. That's when they did it. So okay, we'll have more to say about it. But it's a really interesting construction. Go down the rabbit hole on the Angel of the North Gateshead in Gateshead, England. You're listening to Tool Talk Radio. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
The world is a question. This room is an answer. And the answer is no.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
Yeah, when you invite a contractor over to your house and they break into that tune, you know they're not the right person for the job. And welcome back to Tool. They don't have to rub it in though. And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning. Here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com. Our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989, and it's a great day to do it. In fact, I think we have a caller we're going to get to in just a minute on the line, because there's a lot of we're doing a little art appreciation today. We are all big supporters of the arts. We were talking in our Great Moments in Building History about the Angel of the North. It's a really unique steel structure in Gateshead, England, and today also happens to be International Sculpture Day. I'm calling it Sculpture Appreciation Day. So we have a caller that's wants to weigh in on that momentarily. Before we get to that, though, we also want to pay tribute to our good buddy Jay Hill with Big M Roofing and Remodeling. In fact, I think we had a testimonial call earlier about the masterful crown molding that they installed at their project. But Jay is all about they do remodeling, of course, but we really showcase the exterior protection of your home, which they're all about when it comes to roofing, gutters, siding, windows. They're just all about that. They've got it down to a science, and those systems all work together, especially when it comes to your roofing. I mean, if your roofing is compromised, you don't have a home. Let's just face it. You've got to protect your roof. One of the things that sets Jay apart is, well, for one thing, he's always 5 stars with the Better Business Bureau. He's one of the highest rated roofers in the Mid-South. His rating is through the roof. I didn't even mean to say that.
Literally. Yep.
He's a GAF Master Elite installer, and they always work with GAF because those are the roofing technology is always at the cutting edge, and they have roofing systems that are so advanced that they actually offer lifetime transferable warranties. What also sets Jay apart is the fact that he is a former insurance agent, and that is super important, because if you have any damage to the outside of your home, especially your roof, that might be covered by your homeowner's insurance, that is a real tricky process to navigate, and you really need an advocate on your side. And so Jay Hill should really be the first person you call anytime you have any roofing questions or situations, because for one thing, his consultation is free. You're getting all this expert advice, and if you have a path forward to have your roof replaced by your homeowner's insurance, it's going to save you literally thousands of dollars. So it's a pretty exciting process when Jay gets involved in any project, because he brings a real energy and optimism to all the work that he does. So we love Jay Hill. He's a good friend of ours, and he's always out there doing good in the Mid-South. You can call him directly, too. Just get in touch with him at 901-484-5645. Or go to his website, bigmroofingandremodeling.com. All right, well, Max, you said we've got a caller on the line.
Yes, sir, Larry.
Okay. How's it going, Larry?
Pretty good. Good morning.
What's going on? So it sounds like you wanted to talk art with us, my friend.
Yes, sir. I'm a retired landscape architect, native Memphian for an awful lot of years.
Nice.
I will want to comment on the pieces that are downtown in Memphis, which are partially disassembled, if you want to use a better word. You have pieces like the John Seyfried piece called The River next to the Federal Reserve Bank. That's water is part of the piece. Water was turned off years ago. You have the Eric Parks piece in front of the Federal Reserve Bank up on the plaza. Beautiful piece, but it's part of a fountain, and the fountain was turned off years ago.
Interesting.
The dancing fountains in Civic Center were turned off because they never worked right from the very beginning. The water wall there in front of Civic Center was very interesting design. It was turned off. And then you have, going further back, you have the aluminum fountain that was in front of the old post office building, which a lot of people didn't like. Not only was it turned off, the entire piece was removed.
Oh.
For a while, it lived on top of a storage building over at Overton Park.
It's interesting how we have certain pieces of art that they kind of get forgotten, and then all of a sudden they get resurrected. Like somebody says, why is that being neglected? And then they move it, and suddenly they it's reborn. I was kind of thinking of, I thought you might also mention the what is that building on Beale Street where they basically left the face of the building, Allan, and it's It's gutted. There's no building. It's literally they've got the front of the building propped up. I should know the name.
The wall is propped up, yes.
Yeah. So, but Larry, you're a landscape architect, because I kind of wanted to pick your brain real quick. Allan's been talking about, when you make projects with your type of work, you're not just thinking of 6 months down the road. You have to think of 20 or 30 years down the road, right?
Yeah, I've always been a little bit taken aback when you review plans for projects. I see I'm picking at my own people here. They will draw a square or something and say sculpture here. Well, yeah. I think the sculptor, the artist, should be part of the planning process from the very beginning.
Right. Oh, absolutely. So, yep.
Well, the part that gets me is they'll put a little line. They'll say, all right, we're going to put the bird waterer here. The sculpture goes here. And this is where we're going to put the cute little potted pine.
Yes.
And then, 20 years later, I'm trying to wade through the pine forest to find the waterer and the sculpture.
Yeah.
Because they put the wrong tree in the wrong place. Or the other thing people forget is the ergonomics of landscape architecture.
Yeah.
How do people walk through this?
Right.
Where are they going to walk? How are they going to see it? Where do
or
you want
in
them
case
to walk?
just a brief glance at one, there's one down at the rest stop down on 55 going south, just beyond Brooks Road down there. It's basically a pyramid, but as you drive past it, the pyramid changes colors depending on your outline to it. And most people don't even notice that that piece is sitting up there. You have a piece downtown behind the old Goldsmiths building, which at one time revolved, but it revolved so slowly unless you were walking up to it, you wouldn't notice it. And of course, when you have to negotiate downtown traffic, most people aren't even aware that it turned at all.
Right.
Interesting. Hey, Larry, what would you say is your favorite project you ever did as a landscape architect? I got to admit, I don't know a lot of landscape architects, so I'm kind of curious.
Favorite? Each one of them are kind of favorites.
Do you have any really interesting one that stands out in your mind? Because, we should say, right, Allan, when we're talking about landscape architect, we're talking about, the artistic use of planting and everything like that, right? That's kind of what it's all about.
Yes, one of my complaints about projects of mine, unlike like a sculptor, for instance, or a painter or an architect, very seldom do people come in after the fact and make arbitrary changes on what you have done. And by that, I mean the ever-present maintenance man on plant material, where you've designed it in a certain way and they come back in and due to improper maintenance, screw the whole thing up.
That's what I was wondering. You're planting living things, and if they if they kill it, or they cut the limb off, or if they do whatever. So yeah.
Yeah, you go back 5 years later and you find out you've got mulch volcanoes halfway up your trees.
Okay.
Oh,
I've always said that the two worst things that happen to landscape maintenance is a Black & Decker hedge trimmer and an off-duty fireman.
Well, we love off-duty firemen, but hey, Larry, we really appreciate you calling in on this, man. And landscape architecture, that deserves its own conversation. We might have to get back in touch with you when we dig deep into that. So
I look forward to it.
But Larry, thanks for weighing in today, man, and thanks for listening to Tool Talk Radio.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, man. Landscape architecture. I always remember that quote by the that landscape architect that designed Central Park. How he said, I'm not designing this for today. This is for 40 years from now.
Exactly.
And that's got to be a little tough when you don't get to see the results of your work. You don't see the fully formed. And I don't know how I'd feel about. Basically, it's like you're turning this over. It's almost like you're turning your children over to somebody else, and it's you got to keep these things alive, and you got to keep them flourishing and all that. It's a tough gig, man.
Well, we were talking about art for the sake of art, and Larry brought up a huge point, and that is the complications of certain pieces.
Right. Yeah.
If you have pieces that have a lot of moving parts, and I don't mean the art itself moves. I mean the lighting, the water, the walkways, all of the things that bring the art to the people and the people to the art.
Right.
Of all of these things have got to be functional.
Yep.
And sadly, when you start trying to bring in cute water ideas,
Yeah.
keep in mind that is getting the water in there and getting the water out of there. And I'm going to bring that up just as because every year about this time, people start thinking about fish ponds.
Do they?
Yeah, spring.
I don't want a fish pond, but it seems like a mosquito nest.
People
Yeah.
like the water features. They like the water gardens.
Yep.
And I'm going to point out, folks, once again, you got to bring that water in. You got to clean it. You got to maintain it. And you got to get that water out.
Right.
So
And it erodes things and it creates lime deposits.
it does, all of those things that nature wants to do.
I want to say one thing though, because Larry, I hope you're still listening. He did make me think of something. He was naming a few items, a few structures around here, a few sculptures and things that we could say, I guess, have been a little neglected. What's interesting about that though is it seems like I do believe that things hit a certain age where it's old enough where you're like, well, we got to bring this back to life. Like suddenly, if it's not too old, it's not interesting. Then it hits a magic age where I saw this in Chicago all the time. Believe it or not, there was a time when Wrigley Field was falling apart.
Right.
And they're like, what are we doing? This is like an icon. But when I was a kid, it wasn't so much. And then it hits a certain age and it becomes special and it becomes protected. And I think some of these features that and some of these structures that Larry was talking about, I think they'll get some love here in the future. And they say we got to get these working and we got to maintain them and keep them going. So.
Well, people have to discover them, and like the pyramid that changes colors. Now that we've said it on the radio, people are going to look for it as they drive by, and I never noticed that over there before.
Yeah,
or I never saw that. I remember there was one sculpture in Midtown, which was the lady wearing a coat.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah.
We'll get them back.
We love our quirky pieces of art.
Absolutely. Well, we have a tool tale when we come back.
All righty.
Pretty well-rounded show. You're listening to Tool Talk Radio. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
I'm here to clean the carpets. Most of the world is carpeted, and one day we will do the cleaning.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
It's not easy to find good technicians for that. That's a dying art, Allan. So, I mean, I wish him luck, but, it's going to be a lot of upkeep once you're carpeting the whole world.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Anyway, welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. And we appreciate everybody that's weighed in today on the show. And, it's been a lot of fun. There's just enough time probably for a quick message, if you want to get in touch with us there. But, hey, Allan, before we shift gears and get on to talking tools again, I feel like people should know what was going on with Dark Oak Media this week. So, because I bet you there were things happening.
Well, there have been quite a few. The biggest thing, of course, has been of the podcast for Tool Talk Radio and Geek Tank Radio. Been pretty big. And this week's big splash has been the word kumquats.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Food Dude did a segment on citrus tarts featuring the funniest named fruit in the world, and that has been shockingly popular.
I feel like I've heard that on the Great British Baking Show. Have they ever used those?
Oh yes. It's a very tart citrus. It's they're kind of the key lime of the orange side of the family.
Okay, yeah, because they're unique, right? I mean,
they're unique, and we had a couple of pounds shipped in from California. Made some desserts and tarts, and ran around and had a lot of fun with them.
Okay. Yeah, people love the food dude segments on Thursday. So
we had a lot of fun.
And it seems like everybody migrates over towards the studio here when all the office people, they want to get fed. So
It's kind of funny how much food I have to bring in on Thursday mornings.
exactly. So what do people do if they want to hear more? If they
They
want to
can
know,
just pop over to darkoakmedia.com or they can go to tooltalkradio.com. We've got links to everything on all the sites.
okay, cool. In a minute, we're going to get to a tool tale, but I just wanted to put this out there. Max, I'm actually looking at you because you were here. Mostly Allan and I are here on the weekends. I know Allan's here on Thursdays, but Max, you've been with your ear to the ground. Is it true that they are looking at building a Buc-ee's in Fayette County?
Unfortunately.
Oh my gosh, Allan, it'll be
a pilgrimage.
I mean, that's less than 30 minutes away from Memphis.
I work in Fayette County all the time.
Oh my gosh, Buc-ee's. If you've never been to a Buc-ee's,
I'll be a Buc-ee's convert in no time.
Oh my gosh,
No, you won't. I don't want you to. I need some level of sanity in here.
It's a destination. It's a brilliant business model. They took something that should be a hassle, like going and getting gas or finding a bathroom, and they turn it into a destination, and it's like people will travel. They'll wait 100 miles if they know that there's a Buc-ee's up ahead.
Oh yes,
and,
yes.
It's a riot. I love, but I'm an unapologetic Buc-ee's enthusiast. So if that's happening, I hope it's not one of these where we got to wait 7 or 8 years. I hope this is in the near future. But
we'll find out.
Fayette County is about to explode if that's the case.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
This is great. Okay, but let's shift gears, Allan.
And now, Tool Tales with Tool Talk Radio.
I think I bet you've had more experience with this. The reason this is something actually we talked about with Jay Hill last week. He's if you missed last week's show, folks, Jay Hill, he's all about roofing and the exterior protection of your home. He did have a really unique project that he talked about where they had it's a commercial building that was converted into
a home, right?
A home. It's kind of one of those old buildings, like with the flat roofs and the sort of periphery on the side. Well, this owner wanted a deck, and you don't just build a deck on top of a wooden deck because, for one thing, it's gonna trap water, it's gonna leak, it's gonna whatever. So this is essentially a floating deck, and but he did tell me that another feature of this is they had a wooden fence. And to seal like the end grain and to just add a decorative element, they took a blowtorch and they burned.
Oh yeah,
this lightly. They didn't burn it down, but by the judicious use of flames, you can actually seal wood in a really unique way. And I thought we should talk about that. Keep the fire extinguisher handy, but it's kind of there's a lot happening chemically when you do that too, though, Allan. So. You've done a little burning, I thought.
I have done quite a bit over the years.
Okay.
One, it is a great way of taking brand new construction and making it disappear into the woods.
It gives it a distressed look, so yeah.
Well, it darkens.
Just like cooking, though, you can overdo it. You gotta have the right
yes. We're talking a light toasting, not a heavy bake. The best example I can give you of this is a whiskey barrel.
Oh. Yeah, there's something to that.
So let's start with that. So we have a white oak. We're going to make a barrel out of it. And then the lovely people at XYZ Whiskey Maker is now going to store their product in it for a period of time. And that is because when you scorched the inside of the wood, and people forget this, the saps and everything in the wood are sugars.
Right.
So now it has caramelized, and now as the whiskey ages, it mellows and exchanges chemicals, and then you get the 5-year-old, 10-year-old, 20-year-old product later.
Right.
Now, on wood, that is an old, as we used to call, bushcraft finish.
Bushcraft, okay.
AKA, I don't have fancy store-bought ways of closing the pores and getting this wood a little more durable.
Right.
So, heat.
Yeah.
And you can use basically your propane torch set on bad.
Yeah.
You're not looking at the pretty blue tight flame. You're looking at
You want a more
orange flame,
right.
so you're just going over the surface. And you're just basically getting the light tanning of the wood.
right.
And what it does is it gets rid of all the little fibers, all the little hairs, and closes the pores. Caramelizes the sugars right there. Boom.
When I think of wood, you think of it as, for example, when I do my wood turnings, like sometimes I would order these billets, you call them, and you want to store them so that they cure, like they dry or
Right.
something. But you have to have a certain level of moisture, or the oils have to be. You don't want them completely depleted, or then the wood gets brittle. Like there's still a moisture content you
Yes.
want in wood, right?
Is there any instance where it's actually good to have desiccated wood, or is that mostly just for like tinder? Like it's good to have desiccated wood for tinder,
right, or something. I don't know.
All right. Well, generally, it's the old, how did you harden the tip on your spear? Well, and you didn't want it soft and mushy like a green plant, so you heated it.
Yeah.
And you made a nice hard spear tip. Just
Right.
earliest, and that's, caveman style of, manufacturing. Of basically what we're talking about here is you're trying to seal it against the elements. And what you
You're keeping
don't...
the water out, because water
Yeah.
will wash everything away and all that. Yeah.
Well, the biggest thing is when you've cut wood down the side, you've left a lot of fibers open to the world. And those fibers' whole purpose in existence was to move water.
Right.
So if you leave them, that's what they're going to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, by coming by and putting this burnished finish on it, you've gotten rid of the end of those fibers, you've sealed it off, and now it's not as wood absorptive as it would have been if you'd left it alone.
And it's a decorative thing, because it's like, my feelings about staining exterior
Right.
stuff. I'm not a fan. However, burning it, it's easy. And it's more
clean,
forgiving, it's
right.
clean, and it makes it kind
But
of a
it can
distressed
still
look.
breathe.
Right.
It can still dry.
Yeah.
But it's not trying to absorb every bit of water that gets on it.
It still lets the wood be the wood,
Yes.
which is what we're all about here. But, I hear the sound, Alan. I guess it's time to get out of here. You've been listening to another dynamic episode of Tool Talk Radio. Well, we got to go. So on behalf of my buddy, Allan Gilbreth, and our pal Max over there behind the glass, I'm Joe Thorderson. Thanks for listening to Tool Talk Radio, and we'll see you next week.